Welcome back to the Eric Krown Crypto Channel. Wishing you a happy, healthy start to this nice Monday. A big week ahead of us. We got CPI prints coming out tomorrow. Very likely to set some major directions within this market. And I wanted to follow up on the higher term time frame setups that we've been looking at. One of the ones I was given a big bias to the downside on this last move, and what that essentially means coming in this next 48 hours price action. Basically, the picture that I'm going to be painting, or that I want to be looking at today, is that if we fail to see continuation by tomorrow and at most Wednesday, like the next 48-hour period, very likely you're going to see a bit of a bear trap here with moves back up to the prior range highs. But we'll go over very specific numbers about what to be looking for there. And other than that, I think it's time for me to once again shill my channel. If you find this content valuable or if you hate it, please do consider liking and subscribing. It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. But let's just jump right into it right here. So I want to start off first with a couple things. So first, maybe not necessarily foremost, but we do see that the yellow 21 exponential average and the 200 moving average have crossed to the upside, meaning that the lower period has crossed the upside of the of the higher period. And historically speaking, for CME, this has actually been a pretty decent cross, both to the upside and the downside, for setting the general direction after that. Now, when I say general direction, doesn't mean that you can't see pullbacks. In this case, like obviously things do not move up in a straight line. Like it's like Bitcoin goes up 50% over here, pulls back 15%. Fucking panic, man! It's time to panic. It's time to go. I'm shorting this shit all the way back down to zero, baby. It's like, all right, fair enough. Fair enough. But going back on over here, we can see the last cross to the downside, generally, well, all the way down. This last cross over here to the upside, however, was getting that move from about 40,000 all the way up to the current all-time high at 69,000 bucks. We can see the time before that on this cross to the upside from May, coming out of the old Rona dumps, leading Bitcoin from 9,000 to ungodly numbers over here. Same thing to the upside right here. Even though this was a bull trap, this one did ultimately fail. These things are not guaranteed major moves, but this was still a pretty decent move. I'd say 16.5% almost to the upside from the cross to the next high. So certainly that would not be anything to, at least in my opinion, ignore. And then of course the time before that was coming back on over here from 5,000 all the way up to 14,000 bucks. Other than that, there's no other examples in the history of CME. Obviously spot price action is going to be different, but we're focusing specifically on this chart because there's a few other things of interest right now. And as long as Bitcoin is essentially closing above the 200 simple, meaning that we do not see continuation to the downside on a daily closing basis, well, that does offer up the opportunity for a bit of a bear trap here in a more serious tone. A few other things. If it were to confirm a local low, then Bitcoin CME on the daily would confirm hidden bullish divergence between the lows right here and the presumed lows right here. How would you confirm, however, a local low? Daily needs to pop back up and close back above the last prior breakdown point, which is about 22.5 or 22.350, depending upon your exchange. In this case, using CME. So ultimately, if you see daily closures back above there, well, I would be looking at that as not just a bit of a bouncy bounce, but probably the beginning of a bit of a trap move with more momentum on the daily. Anyways, moving on and into the stochastic momentum for the medium and lower term timeframes, we can see over here. Let me actually go to CME. It's going to be less of a nicer picture, but I think very, very important. We're going to see, starting off with the 12-hour time frame, momentum will turn back up above 22,000 bucks. So again, the more that it kind of hangs around here without having follow through, the more and more likely we're going to see at least a bounce. And that bounce could turn into a bit of a reversal. Bounces can come back up, like I said, to about 22.3 and be just that, a failed bounce before continuation lower. I want to be very deliberately clear. Until Bitcoin clears back above these higher term time frame regions, risk does remain to lower. 6-hour time frame also going to be crossing up from the sort of critical zone down here. You can see the current pivot is 21,650. Bitcoin on CME is trading a clean like 200 bucks above that right now, which is nice. 4-hour time frame is also pivoted at 21.7, so we're seeing a lot of these similar numbers kind of pop up. And hourly is pivoted at 21.8, 830, 840-ish region. So ultimately, lower term timeframes, I'd kind of expect it to play within this lower block here for a little bit more. That being the range between about 21 or 22 to the upside versus about 21,650 to the downside. with extremely short term, probably does, pop back down here a little bit. And then after that, I would be looking for that next bounce attempt. And the bounce attempt is the clear question with it is, do we see Bitcoin actually clear back above any, important levels? Speaking to that point a little bit more, we can go over here to the 4-hour HPDR indicator. And you can see very clearly the top side of the 50% of historical returns range highs is coming in at around that 22,350-ish region. So back above there, especially on a higher term time frame closing basis, yeah, very, very likely we do have a bear trap on our hands. Until then, like I said, risk does remain lower and maybe a short-term bounce in the interim. But here's the next big thing that I really want to be focusing on. I want to follow up on this chart over here. This is the daily chart that we've been referencing for a while now. It gave the downside buy starting as of Monday, actually last week exactly. And this particular setup is becoming incredibly and increasingly interesting. So first, let me explain it. Low volatility represented by this indicator right here, the BBWP indicator, coupled with the direction of the stochastic oscillator over here, has led to some pretty high probability moves with these stats over here, relevant throughout the full history of Bitcoin. As you can see, an average return of about 20%, and a strike rate, if it's going to be to the downside of about 70%. Looking at the first standard deviation, I think that these give some areas of interest as well. But ultimately, I do want to once again harp on the fact that, we really didn't see volatility compress all that much below critical regions. It was certainly not anything comparable to what we saw back in, late December, early January before that last 50% run. In this case, it's just a small stint and then touch and go. And, we have gotten a decent downside move thus far. To put it in perspective, it's been a nearly 12% move to the downside. And let me just see exactly how many days it's been now. Yeah, this is day number 7. So going back into it over here, one of the reasons why I do say that the potential for a trap becomes increasingly higher as each and every day passes without continuation. And really, it's like these next couple days here, I'd say. Like the CPI day would be the time for it to, falter if it's going to falter. Is this one? In the case of a winning, a winning setup, in this case to the downside, we expect it to take about 11 days on average. 11 days on average. Again, there's going to be some variance within there. So, coming into day number 8, 9, that's a pretty mature setup, meaning that you've probably seen the strong majority of it. If we go over here and reference the average return at 20%, yeah, we have not seen a 20% move thus far. We've seen about a 12% move. But if you reference the first standard deviation and then again, harken back, it's like very formal, but how do I even know that word? I don't even know how I know that word. I don't even know how the fuck I know what it means. Then basically this, yes, this was, in my opinion, a much weaker signal compared to what we saw over here. So you would expect a much weaker resolution from it. And if it's going to be a weaker resolution, probably be looking closer to the bottom side of the first standard deviation, or somewhere between there and the average return. So that would be 12% all the way to 20%. Well, we've already seen a 12% move. What would like a 15% move look like? Well, that would put Bitcoin at about 20,550 or so. A 20% move obviously puts Bitcoin at the mid 19s or so, which is actually one of the last major CME gaps. So I would say that, if we are going to see continuation, next area of interest would theoretically be about 21.1 over here if Bitcoin breaks the current lows. But that's besides the point. We're talking about the daily right now. If we do see continuation on the daily, probably somewhere around mid to upper 20s is where I'd be looking towards, and probably a bounce attempt right there. But again, the thing is that the longer that Bitcoin goes without seeing continuation, the more and more likely that this will naturally start to curl back around and turn up, meaning the daily stochastic, which would essentially be a resolution of that particular setup. And as of right now, the current pivot to turn daily stochastic momentum back up to the upside would be 22,400. So that number is slowly moving down here. For right now, again, it's still like very obviously below that region. So risk, is quite literally to the downside. Like it's more wise to be looking for downside continuation here. as of today. But coming into to tomorrow, that number is going to massively shift. And if you see any sort of like a nice CPI read, then we're probably going to see an attempt at that level. I'm gonna imagine it's probably gonna be around 22,300 tomorrow. And if you see close above there on a daily, well, at that point, yeah, you got yourself a nice trap. And not just a mean reversion balance. So I think that's good enough for today. I hope that this video has served you well in some way. Want to once again shill the old ByBit there. They got 0% on maker fees for derivative contract orders with, I believe, only my link in the description below. Obviously going to be a little more valuable for traders. So if you're not like an active trader, then that's probably not going to be for you. And yeah, as always, wishing you the best. Take care, much love, and see you hopefully soon.